economy now rests upon this parasitic foundation. It is a colonial mode of production. This is where Karl Marx was wrong when he determined that what we were looking at is what he characterized as a capitalist mode of production that followed feudalism. What followed feudalism was colonialism. Karl Marx himself had to say that what we characterize as wage slavery in Europe required as a pedestal slavery pure and simple in the New World. This is what informs our politics. You can't get out of this without understanding the whole story. You come into the damn movie and it's almost over. You think you know something because you saw this happen or that happen. But the whole story, what holds this damn thing together? They know what holds it together. That's why Uhuru is a problem.
Yes or no? Would you accept Russian money as part of your...
You are trying to make this discussion about something that it is not. You want to know what this real problem is about? If you are genuinely interested to know what this situation is about, not live in fancy land about whether or not I accepted money from Russians, this is real. Not the way you want to see it, not the way you want to control the narrative. What I'm talking about right now is that they're using Russia as a part of a propaganda tool against the people to turn you away, to win, first of all, win your unity with the U.S. government. The U.S. government has no ability to answer any of your questions. None. It can't solve any of your problems, and they tell you that it's Russia's fault. Russia is not in your community causing you to starve. Russia is not in your community pushing you out. Russia is not the St. Pete Police Department that killed Tyrone Lewis in 1996. It was not Russia. It was the U.S. government that did that.
Yes or no?
Preach, sister, preach. What's poppin'? My friends, my family, welcome back. Welcome to Nick at Night, man. I love that name. This is RBN Wednesday Lives. We have a lot to discuss. I have a powerful guest that's going to join us today. Someone I've been wanting to bring on at the Nick at Night program for such some time, Midwestern Marx. But I was just on Glenn Greenwald's system update. We're going to have the replay of that stream tomorrow. I'm probably going to do a premiere maybe around 11 to 12 because me and Glenn, I think we went a little bit longer than his show was planned because there was so much to talk about this. So, and I'll be making the point. Where are all the free speech right-wing populists when it comes to the Uhuru socialist movement being targeted by Jim Crow Joe? This is Black socialists, their dissent being cracked down on by our white supremacist commander-in-chief. Our white supremacist commander-in-chief is arming Nazis in Ukraine. I mean, I have to... This story is unbelievable. I just break this down in the most simple terms possible. You guys want to hear this? You guys want to see how ridiculous this is? We have Jim Crow Joe, a guy who opposed segregation, the guy who's responsible for over 2 million dead Iraqis, funding multiple genocides. He is currently arming Nazis in Ukraine. Doesn't that sound like a white supremacist to you? So we have a white supremacist president that is now cracking down and charging Black socialists for speaking out against the fact that we are funding Nazis. You can't make this shit up. You can't make this shit up. And this is not new. We covered this when the Uhuru Black Socialist Movement was raided in August. Meanwhile, crickets from the free speech right, but most damning of them all is the Black progressive left. My question to you guys is, where has Cori Bush been on this? Where has Jamal Bowman been on this? Where has Ilhan Omar been on this? Where has unbossed Nina Turner been on this? These are people considered Black social democrats, Black democratic socialists, right? Nowhere to be found when our government cracking down on the First Amendment rights of Black socialists who speak in truth to power, who acknowledge their enemy. The greatest use of quote-unquote authoritarian power you can possibly see is being waged by the Democrats. DHS and ICE funding has been is hitting record levels due to Democrats. Police funding hitting record numbers because of Democrats. Joe Biden took COVID relief funds and gave it to the police. Meanwhile, idiots, morons that call themselves black progressives like Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, Jamal Bowman, they're the biggest buying bros you can find. And this guy is waging an assault on our community. So there's a lot to break down. I'm gonna get you some receipts on the story, but first let's bring our guest on. That's our first intro monologue. Eddie, give me a thumbs up whenever you're ready. We have a great guest. He also talked about Marx and socialism, and also been doing a lot of great content exposing the lies of U.S. imperialism. So Eddie Liger, a great citizen journalist. So welcome to RBN Network. Great to have you on, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick. Been wanting to come on forever, so
Yeah,
a lot to talk about today, like you said.
Yeah, I saw the stream that you did with JB. Powerful stream, and this has been a long time making. People asking to have Eddie on the show, and I want to get your general take. I don't know if you've seen this story where O'Malley from the Black Uhuru Socialist Movement was charged and for speaking out against the Ukraine war. And they said that Russia and these black socialists, and I'm gonna show you the receipt here soon, is weaponizing the First Amendment. Actually, I'll pull the receipts up. But have you seen the story? What are your initial thoughts on this insanity?
I mean, it's wild. It's hard to believe it's even real. It was hard to believe it was real when they got raided, and now they're being indicted. Like the legal system is just kind of not even pretending to uphold the First Amendment anymore. While simultaneously, they're prosecuting Assange and this 21-year-old kid who leaked the Pentagon Papers under the Espionage Act, preventing them from bringing forward that public defense trial saying, you know, we leaked these in the public good. So unprecedented crackdowns on freedom of speech there. And I mean, I had just done a video about Paul Robeson, the famous black socialist in the U.S. who had to testify before HUAC. And, you know, they both used anti-communist rhetoric towards him and racist rhetoric towards him to try and shut him up and persecute him for his political views. And it's like history repeating itself now, just in a different form. You know, it's the same thing. We have these black socialists who are speaking out against the empire, and they're being persecuted by the legal system in front of everybody, plain to see.
Nothing new. And that is the point I made when I was on System Update with Glenn Greenwald. I don't know if you guys remember. Do you remember when liberals and conservatives smeared MLK for attending communist training school? You had the establishment that attacked Malcolm X as an agent of Cuba and a Fidel Castro sympathizer because he said base things about Fidel Castro. That was true. So he was painted as an enemy of the state, the same way Martin Luther King was painted as an enemy of the state. W.B. Du Bois was attacked because W.B. Du Bois has praised Stalin multiple times, and he called out, obviously, the racial inequality that's going on in America. He's not quite a Marxist, more of a reformer, but he praised Stalin, and that is what got him smeared as an anti-American agent of the state. So this is a long-term tradition that Jim Crow Joe is keeping strong. So I'm going to show you guys, and you can react to some of these receipts, Eddie, because this is the headline. If you guys have not seen it today, real advocates of free speech and people who are against militarism is covering it. I saw some in the chat that said Jimmy and Max Blumenthal covered it. I was just on Glenn. He was covering it. And oddly enough, and he mentioned it when Glenn mentioned it when I was on the show, because I was calling out right wingers for not speaking up on this. Glenn's going to be on Tucker Carlson, I think tomorrow, covering this, which is a huge development. Like, you guys hear my analysis over Tucker. You guys know there's absolutely no love lost there. But that's huge. That's huge, and that shows that people are tired of this massive government crackdown, regardless of ideology. And what does it say? That Tucker Carlson and some members of the right, I don't think a lot of them are, but some members of the right is going to highlight this story, but Cori Bush will not. Nina Turner will not. Ilhan Omar will not. What does that say? And that's where I go, because Eddie, if you was to focus on Nina Turner, Ilhan Omar, Cory Bush, they're like, oh, Eddie, you fucking racist. Why are you calling out our black female Congress people? So I do it because these people are obvious frauds and they need to be held accountable. Cory Bush was an activist in Missouri who, even though despite her betrayals, I still maintain to this day that she was legit. But Cory Bush was as legit as you get before you get into Congress. This is why I'm done with the strategy. Because, guys, if they can flip Cory Bush, who was in the streets, well known by activists in Missouri, they're flipping everybody. They're flipping 99% of the population. But anyway, I'm going to read this headline. Feel free to interrupt anytime, Eddie. It said members of the Uhuru movement are charged in a Russian plot to interfere in U.S. elections. Do you guys see the end result of Russiagate now?
Oh, it's so ridiculous. From the country that's interfered in more elections than any country in history, accusing our own citizens, the actual advocates of democracy, of being Russian agents.
Social Democrats.
This is all Russiagate was ever about. It was, they wanted to do the proxy war in Ukraine in 2016, but Hillary lost. So that kind of threw a wrench in their plans. Not that Trump wasn't hostile towards Ukraine and furthering the proxy war, but the best thing that the Democrats could do for the next 4 years was just fearmonger about Russia. So then as soon as they got another Democrat in office in 2020, Biden, boom, the proxy war is back on. And now they've had 4 years of anti-Russian propaganda, which they can weaponize for articles like this.
And the people who was debunking Russiagate, I didn't have a platform at the time, but I definitely was speaking out in the capacity that I could. I knew this was what it was going to lead to. Liberals present this idea that, oh man, we're going to crack down and we're going to expand state powers. But trust me, bruh. Trust me. We're only going to do it to go after white supremacists. Trust me, bruh. We got to crack down because we don't want Russian disinformation. We don't want Russians to meddle and destroy our democracy. And we also need to expand the powers of the state to protect you. Protect you. Meanwhile, as this was going on, I was like, guys, they don't give a fuck about any of the shit they're talking about. They're obviously going to expand the police. They're obviously going to give government power to crack down on indigenous people, black people, and workers. And that's exactly what happens. After January 6th, I covered this at the time. You had the Capitol Police who got massive budget increase. But it wasn't only a budget increase, guys. This is what is important. The Capitol Police got massive spying powers, and their powers and their access to information was expanded after January 6th. And this is what the squad voted for. So what did they do after that? Right after, literally the week after this, I covered it on my show. The week after they passed the Capitol Police bill, there was a protest led by indigenous people because they were protesting Line 3, corporate drilling on indigenous lands. And guess who was there to violently crack the heads of indigenous people? The Capitol Police, with all their power and resources that the liberal establishment granted them. That is always the end result of these things. So I'm going to read just a few details from this. Oh, shit, let me pull it up here. From this story, because I'm showing this tweet, because this tweet got some good highlights. So you guys see Amali that was speaking there. You had the Uhuru movement that is located in St. Petersburg, Florida. They also have a branch in St. Louis. There's one other location. God damn it, I'm blanking on it. They in Florida and they in St. Louis. So that's another reason why this is important to me, because I'm gonna go to St. Louis. I'm gonna meet the people in the Uhuru Black Socialist movement here soon. Because these are black socialists in my backyard. They're in St. Louis and in Florida. I'm blanking on the other location, but whatever, not that important. But anyway, they charging these people. And now this is some detail. This is the part I'm gonna read, because this is the part where it's so absurd. You can't. I'm interested in see what you have to say about this, Eddie, because I can't with this shit. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service allegedly weaponized our First Amendment rights. How I can't. How they weaponize our First Amendment rights.
this is the thing they keep saying with the whole misinformation thing. They keep saying like we need to basically crack down on freedom of speech and misinformation in order to protect freedom of speech. It doesn't make any sense. Like they use the First Amendment, or they weaponize First Amendment rights. Like, what does that even mean? The freedom of political expression, they weaponize that, meaning they express themselves freely. They expose, they pointed out what was actually going on, the truth. That's what I interpret weaponization of the First Amendment to be. And it's these are the same people too who will call you a conspiracy theorist when you say there was a coup in Ukraine in 2014, because all these U.S. State Department connected NGOs were funneling money into the U.S.'s preferred political groups, who in a lot of cases happen to be neo-Nazi, ethno-nationalist supporters of Stepan Bandera or followers of Stepan Bandera. But then, they're perfectly fine with saying the socialist group, may or may not be taking money from Russia, so we're allowed to throw them in jail. It's the hypocrisy is almost unreal at this point. But that's what, this is the kind of hypocrisy and the kind of absurdity that they need in their rhetoric to justify the horrific actions that they're doing and continue to try and pretend like they're the compassionate ones. Like how many things is the Biden administration?
I think Eddie froze.
Our tax dollars and funneling them into white supremacists in Ukraine. It's the most hypocritical shit ever.
Russia's foreign intelligence services allegedly weaponized our First Amendment rights. You know that thing we said we had here? Stop taking advantage of the fact that we are lying about the rights that your citizen has. What did I say on RBN? I tell you guys, this whole Bill of Rights shit is nonsense. Nonsense. Easily disproven. The Bill of Rights. These are temporary allowances, as highlighted by George Carlin. Tell me more about that Second Amendment right. The second the cop sees you with a gun and they shit their pants. Watch how fast that Second Amendment right will go away. Then conservatives be like, oh, well, of course he shot him. Of course the cop executed that guy because he had a gun. He had a gun, so that probable cause. I thought we could have those. You know what I mean? If they want to, they can snatch all these rights away and they can work backward for the conclusion. So this
absolutely. And
go ahead, Eddie. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and with time, I think more and more of the rights are going to go away. Like, there's always been political bribery, but in 2011, you have Citizens United that basically makes it legal. Now you have the Patriot Act, all these different progressions towards more and more crackdowns, less and less freedom of speech. And this has been the problem with these liberal democracies, which is what our countries claim to be, the Western countries claim to be. When you have capitalism as your economic system, like, you can promise the people these political rights all you want. You can say you have the right to vote, you have the right to freedom of speech, political expression, blah, 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 pursuit of happiness. But if you allow capitalism to be the economic system at the core of society, the capitalists are going to accumulate wealth, control the government, and take more and more of your rights away. And they're going to use the armed bodies of the state, like the military and the police, to take your rights away even more, suppress you as much as they need to in order to stop you from overthrowing the economic system. So these liberal democracies can't even live up to their own ideals that they set out. Like you said, the bill with time and with the accumulation of capital, which concentrates power at the top.
Yeah, well said, Eddie. I'm gonna continue this ridiculous statement because we only one line in. It said they weaponize Russia weaponized our First Amendment rights. Freedoms Russia denies its own citizens. Like, do you guys know the BBC operates in Russia? RT is not allowed to operate in the UK. RT is not allowed to operate in France. Now, this is I cannot wait to show you guys my conversation I had with Glenn, because he allowed me to take some time to explain the nonsense regarding authoritarianism and the propaganda that liberals use to describe authoritarianism. Countries have laws. and countries will implement those laws. Regarding speech, all countries have laws on speech, including this country. Try to say fire in a crowded crowd. Try to threaten someone's life. Say you're going to kill someone. See how protected your speech are. Those same rules apply to Russia. So the only thing we can really do, knowing that countries have laws and speech have to be regulated in some sense, there hasn't been a country in the history of humanity that didn't regulate speech to some degree. And that's a true statement. So all countries regulate speech to a certain degree. All countries implement laws. All countries have some form of law and order. So what can we use as a metric to determine how authoritarian a country is? Even though that concept is mostly a made-up concept. The only thing you can really do is rely on raw numbers, right, Eddie? Like, because all countries have laws, all countries have prisons, right? All countries have do stuff that we disagree with in certain points. But who's imprisoning the most? Who's cracking down on the most? That's what I focus on. You have the United States that has 1 billion less people than China, but less people in prison than China. But people want to convince me that China is more authoritarian. So I was asking people to define authoritarian and what does that mean? What does it mean for the DPRK to be more authoritarian than the United States? What does that statement mean when you say that Russia is more authoritarian than the United States? What does it mean when you say Russia doesn't have First Amendment rights compared to the United States? Because I would argue they have more. Like when you talk to Fiorella Isabel, she tells you she has way more freedom at RT compared to a journalist who works for CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, right? So I can expand on this ridiculous concept altogether, but this is a typical propaganda. Now, how ridiculous is our country that our propaganda is embedded in our legal system? So it will be one thing if you're just a partisan, you saying this shit. You're a Western chauvinist and you saying this shit. You're just you're some guy engaging in politics and you saying that Russia has no First Amendment rights. We have. No, this is a legal indictment. Like this is coming from our legal system uses political language, uses propaganda on its own people to justify charging them. Tell me more about how China and Russia are uniquely authoritarian. So they also said what they're doing, they're trying to divide Americans and interfere in elections in the United States. And they also said the Justice Department said they will not hesitate to expose and prosecute those who sow discord. Because that's apparently illegal now. Sowing discord. Eddie, you radical talking about Marxism on TikTok? You sowing discord, lock them up. What does that mean? Do you guys like there's a handful of people that see what's going on, like me, Glenn, Eddie, all our friends that's talking about the insane, real authoritarian crackdown of our state. Meanwhile, everyone else is talking about bullshit. Everyone's talking about January 6th, red, blue, Clarence Thomas, this, Martin Taylor Greene, this person said that, this person said that. Meanwhile, our government is literally doubling down on fascism. We always been fascists, but we are doubling down on fascism in an insane rate where the Justice Department is now saying that sowing discord is worth the charge. I cannot emphasize how crazy this is, except with the tone of my voice. That's the only thing I do to let you guys know how fucking crazy this is. So I finished the statement. I think I said a lot. There's a lot to break down. I'm gonna show you guys my clip on Glenn because we break this down for quite a bit. I was playing a lot of different concepts because Glenn is a great journalist who attracts people from all different political persuasions. So I know he had a lot of right wingers that follow Glenn. So I was talking to them. Like I was explaining the concept of authoritarian to them. I was explaining to them how you have people like, I'm sure Eddie as well, many people on the left that stood up for right wingers who had their free speech trampled on. But right wingers, I predict they're going to be just as silent on this issue. But we see, because Glenn apparently going to talk to Tucker Carlson about it. We see. But Eddie, any final thoughts, any last thoughts you have on this story in general?
I think it's important what you said about authoritarianism and breaking down that concept because it is such a popular concept in propaganda, and I think that can be traced back to Hannah Arendt's book Origins of Totalitarianism, which tried to conflate the Soviet Union with Nazi Germany. the fascists with the country who defeated the fascists. And that book was heavily supported by the CIA. And this has been the concepts of totalitarianism and authoritarianism. They don't really mean anything, like you said, in the abstract. But it allows the U.S. media to say, you know, these countries are authoritarian, these countries aren't. Well, what does that mean? Like you said, if you start comparing the countries quantitatively in terms of prison population and things like that, the U.S. appears more authoritarian than a lot of them, especially if you look at the recent crackdowns on speech. And I think there's also a qualitative comparison to be made there with countries like China. And this goes back to Engels' 3-page book on authority, which is who does the state, or the state is always going to have a monopoly on authority, but who controls the state? Who controls the authority? Is it the people? Is it the masses? Because 89% of Chinese people support their government. Something like 20-30% of Americans think our government functions efficiently, right? Because our government is a dictatorship of capital. It only works for the capitalist class and their expansion. So that's how authority is used in our country. You know, elsewhere, China uses authority to combat imperialism, raise people out of poverty. And no, that doesn't mean they're perfect. But there's different ways that a government can work, and ours is working. Ours is a perfect example of a pure dictatorship of the capitalist class.
Yeah, well said, Eddie. Now, we also have a story. You have the return of child labor in this country. You have AMLO, who has been spied on. He's claiming he was spied on by the Pentagon. AMLO, who's been a pleasant surprise. I didn't expect him to speak out against the West the way he has, calling out the United States for their position on Cuba, the Cuba blockade, on Ukraine and NATO. They called him out for their policies in Venezuela. So we're going to get to that soon. But first, I can't help but have my ears perked up at the name Midwestern Marx. Because I'm a Midwestern boy myself. You guys can tell from my accent. And Eddie, I want you to speak on this because I want to lead with the main story, but I want to make sure I touch on this because I think you speak on this. I want you to explain the name Midwestern Marx. And assuming from the Midwest, you can speak on how receptive you think people in the Midwest may be to our message, or like you can speak anecdotally, like your own personal experience. I'm very interested in that because I'm a Midwestern boy, and I want to hear your point of view. Why choose the name Midwestern Marx? Why do you think that's an effective way to lead with?
Yeah, we've always, Carlos and I, who started the website, we've always had a theory that there are different cultures and even different material conditions no matter where you go around the United States. So like the, culture in California in Los Angeles is very different than the Midwest and very different than the Deep South, or very different than the East Coast. So the form that class struggle takes, the traditional Marxist theory is that it takes a national form, a different national form in every country, a different unique form based on the material conditions of that country. And our idea is that, the different areas of the United States are going to need unique forms of struggle. So we have tailored, our message is tailored towards anyone. And, we want to build international solidarity and solidarity with anyone who's willing, but specifically tailored towards the Midwest and workers in the Midwest who, when we were caucusing for Bernie and working for Bernie Sanders, which Carlos and I both did, he was a big volunteer and I actually worked as an intern on the campaign. We were knocking on doors, and like the campaign infrastructure that they program into your phone would take us only to registered Democrats. And anytime we would try to do something and push the campaign organizers to do something more bold, like go and knock on doors in a trailer park where the landlords were trying to jack up the rent and force everybody off the land and things like that, they were always resistant to it. They wanted us to focus on registered Democrats. And a lot of times we were in these super wealthy neighborhoods knocking on doors, talking to people about Medicare for all. They're just like, I don't want that to come out of my taxes. I already have good insurance. I'm like, okay, well, I don't really have much to say to you then.
I told you guys before, when I was canvassing for like 5 weeks in South Carolina, I talked to like rednecks. I talked to extremely socially conservative Black people, and I told this story 1,000 times, but there was this black dude that was like, bro, I would never vote for Pete Buttigieg because he's gay. You know what I mean? I'm talking about extremely socially conservative. I had them nodding along with me way more than I did bourgeoisie liberals. And the reason why I can relate to this, because you said, like, I remember when we was canvassing, I knocked on hundreds, thousands of doors during my time. Whenever I went to an affluent neighborhood, I was like, fuck. Like, fuck.
It's a waste of time.
It was a waste of time.
Yes, we would get so angry, and we would, we would fight against the campaign managers, and there was a lot of friction there, and they didn't want us criticizing Democrats either. They would always have us
I'm glad I have freedom. See, I'm glad they didn't. I was in Beaufort, South Carolina. It was pretty, not super small, but relatively small town. They had some Bernie people out there, but it was decently radical. I'm glad. Like, if I was in Charleston, where it was much bigger, they probably would relegate what I said. But I was radical as fuck out there. I was radical, but I was criticizing everyone. But I can definitely see the cowards in the Bernie campaign telling their more radical activists not to criticize Democrats. I'm just personally glad I didn't deal with that. But Eddie, go ahead.
Yeah. A lot of the campaign in our area was run by professional managerial class people, and they just like their class interest would show in every situation. Like, they didn't want to have a very basic message based on class. It was, more based on PMC issues with Medicare for all and a few class issues thrown in there. So yeah, that's why we started Midwestern Marx, to offer people a class-based alternative, and and an anti-imperialist alternative, because now if you look at how Bernie and all these so-called socialists have gone along with the proxy war effort in Ukraine, we need an anti-imperialist movement here in this country as well.
So I'm very lucky that my family is mostly apolitical. It allowed my transition to what I do now much smooth. It was much smoother. CJ and few of my old RBN comrades, they'll tell me stories about liberals and their family who was upset at them. I never had to deal with that, because a lot of people in the Midwest, man, we're just trying to survive. A lot of people out here is deeply religious, but they hear my politics, and I'm more speaking like black and brown Midwesterners. They'll hear my politics about black liberation. They don't care about capitalists and the term capitalism and socialism and communism. I got people in my family apolitical as fuck that nod at everything I say political. They don't consider themselves socialists and communists. These are things people inherently support. And now that's people that close to my family. But even when you talk to the white working class in these areas, if you speak to their material needs, like, do you, and this is me personally, like, I don't know how anyone else is out here, do you guys really need them to agree on your terms? You know what I mean? Do you really need someone to say, oh, after our conversation, I'm now a communist? I don't need that. I personally don't need that. I need you to agree with increasing our material needs, agree with the workers taking their fair labor value back, and holding the ruling class accountable. And that's where you get a lot of people in the Midwest to agree with. Where a lot of people get misled, and I see that there'll be like good people who will get misled because we are socially conservative as fuck. And the Republican and Democrat Party has mastered the ability to push culture wars out there that completely distract otherwise class-conscious people into supporting great policies, which is why the Bernie Sanders progressive left strategy, as you exposed, of ignoring people that outside of their PMC left political box is astoundingly incompetent. It's like, yeah, you may not get, because guys, there are people in my family, and I'm not gonna say it, I ain't trying to get these people canceled. They support Medicare for all, dude. They support ending the war. They support all this y'all talking about. But good luck talking to them about the trans issue. I got older black people in my family. I had conversations where I was upset with this dude. He's like, man, I don't really fuck with them trans people. I'm like, what, dude? Like, come on, like, and that's how the Midwest is. So a PMC, Bernie Sanders leftist, is gonna lean into that shit. They're gonna meet someone in the Midwest who disagrees with them on the trans issue, and they're gonna immediately cut them off. Man, if you get the trans issue wrong, I'm not saying this issue not important, but if you get this wrong, the PMC left will cut you off. No debate, no conversation, you're done. Now, someone from the Midwest who know people who otherwise that are good-hearted, but they don't follow every talking point like trans people in sports and all this stuff. The professional boutique left will cut them off real quick. Meaning, and I made this point before, they hate the very people they claim they fight for. Because you guys claim you fight for the poor. You guys are claiming fighting for black people and the workers. Not every single poor and black person has PMC approved positions. I have friends to this day that make crude jokes and say words that you guys probably give them censored for. They offline, like they extremely offline. They're not on Twitter, not on YouTube. They'll say some shit. I'm like, damn, if you said that shit on Twitter, you'd be fucked, son. You'd be fucked. but the people who claim that they fight for my brothers who say stuff like that, they will cut them. Imagine if we held a rally and they knew what some of my friends said and passing and jokes. They would say, "Oh, you're not allowed to attend this rally because you said this one thing about trans people. You said this one thing about this issue." That's the Midwest, guys. And if you're not, I saw a comment before that say you never been to Midwest before. It sounds weird. In West Coast liberals, West Coast and East Coast elites won't understand this. Their religion is strong here. Social conservative belief is strong here. They still want the best for people, though. Like, it's hard to explain. Eddie, maybe you can explain better than me. And a lot of times, their ignorant positions doesn't come from malice. It comes from them not understanding. That's why I can't stand the PMC approach of there's no education, there's no debate. You support the Democratic Party line, you support the PMC socially approved line, or you're done. That is not how you movement build. And that's why I like that you are willing to reach out. And we need people to want to reach out to the Midwest. And if I'm going to be frank, because and you can speak on, I know I'm ranting, you can go next, but I've spoken out many times on white people not doing the work. To be 100% real, you have white people that will go on Twitter, social media, and they will say all these great things. Meanwhile, their family's fucked up. They're not talking to the people in their own community. So at least that's what you're doing. Like that is what real allies are supposed to do. Like talk to their people and flip them. So any last thoughts you have on this topic, Midwestern Marxism and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, people know inherently what's in their own class interest, like you said. So if you speak to their material interests, you like you said, pretty much everyone who's a working class person can get on board with these ideas like free healthcare or just, class struggle for the working class in general. A lot of times, they're scared of communism, but you have to introduce them to those ideas, and a lot of times they have socially conservative views, but that's, a lot of times they haven't been exposed to the other side. They haven't been exposed to any trans people or whatever. And we've actually worked out this sort of idea that we should just dismiss everyone in the Midwest or in the Deep South because they have some socially conservative positions or whatever, because they're not perfect on all the issues that Twitter leftists demand that you be perfect on, that we should just dismiss them. We call this the purity fetish. And Carlos, one of our editors, actually just published this book fully fleshing out this concept. It applies both to how people, socialists in the imperial core, view existing socialist countries and expect them to be perfect before they will support them in any way, shape, or form. Yes. And then they expect the same thing of the working class. They expect a perfect working class, a pure working class, a working class that already has all the right positions, a working class that doesn't say anything abrasive or doesn't say anything they don't like. And it's just not realistic. You can't choose, you can't pick and choose your working class. The working class is what it is. Their political consciousness is what it is. The only way to raise that political consciousness is to go to them and to talk to them. If you dismiss them as being impure and, don't go talk to them, that's never going to happen. And like you said, it's mostly like white people. It's mostly white leftists who are calling these people, fascists, saying all Midwest workers are fascists. Like when the John Deere strikes were going on, we went and stood shoulder to shoulder on the picket line with them. And, a lot of them told us that they voted for Trump, but they did it because they thought he was going to bring jobs back or whatever. And, we were talking to them about socialism and trying to raise their political consciousness. Rather than, we didn't leave the picket line and say, screw this, form of class struggle, screw these John Deere workers rising up against their boss, against their company that's owned by Bill Gates and the other largest shareholders in the company or country. They voted for Trump. Ideally, we wouldn't want them voting for Trump. We want to raise their political consciousness as much as we can, but that's not a reason to dismiss somebody. Nobody's fully pure. Everybody makes mistakes.
And I want you guys to understand, it's not just white guys that they throw into the trash. They don't like me. Like I gave a speech at Worker Strike Back. I gave a speech for the March for Medicare for All. I give speeches. I like giving speeches. It's fun. They didn't attend the March for Medicare for All because they see a bunch of deplorables there. They're like, we don't want to be seen marching with deplorables. You know, nurses unions, black people like me. You guys know I don't have health care. You guys know that? A lot of people think I'm balding for some reason. I don't have health care. But I'm giving a speech. I'm marching for health care. I'm marching for something that I materially need. And the DSA left the Nina Turner because she refused to attend the March for Medicare for All. They was like, we don't want to be seen with you guys. I was at Worker Strike Back. If you guys think I'm too radical, I was at Worker Strike Back talking about union organizing, something that the progressive left pretends to care about. I was at Worker Strike Back. Shama Sawant reached out to these people. They told me behind the scenes, and none of them attended. They want nothing to do with socialist alternative. So let's get this straight, Eddie. Let's get this straight. So they don't want to march with Trump supporters. They don't want to march with black Marxists like me. They don't want to march with socialists like the socialist alternative is to my right, whether you guys believe it or not. They don't want to march with socialist alternative. They don't want to march with RBN. They don't want to march with black Marxists. They don't want to march with Trump supporters. It seems to me like they only want to march and organize with liberals. Doesn't that seem like what it is to you?
They hate the working class. They like the working class in the abstract, the idea of the working class, right? They like to say that they're fighting for the working class. But when it comes time to organize with the working class, no, they're not pure enough. You know, we can only organize with liberals who already share 99.9% of our positions.
AOC does not want to be seen with you. She wants to be seen with David Schroeder, the Oscar winner. She doesn't want to be seen with you at a protest. She want to be seen with Alex Wagner, the replacement for Rachel Maddow. She was just on the Daily Show. I didn't see it. I don't think I can play it because Daily Show has hard copyright, so I can't even do a response to her appearance. But she was interviewed on the Daily Show talking about Clarence Thomas. So she want to be seen with comedians on the Daily Show, but she do not want to be seen with you fucking deplorables at the March for Medicare for All. Do you guys see where their class interest lies? And I know, RBN, we are uniquely angry at these people. Like, there's not many people that cover the NATO left and the boutique left and AOC and Bernie Sanders the way we do. And I know we cover them a lot. But to me, I am astounded more people don't cover their betrayal. Like, Eddie, I was on board. I was a member of the Bernie Sanders campaign. There was a time where I liked AOC, I liked Cory Bush, I liked Nina Turner. And to see what they are now is one of the biggest political betrayals I have ever seen. Like, this is up there with Obama. I am still shocked to this day at how bad that group turned out to be. And I feel like more people should be talking about it. It's insane how bad, because like Joe Manchin, I know you want to chime in, but Joe Manchin is horrible, but he takes corporate money. Like, he straight up telling you, like, yo, I'm running, I'm going to be horrible, I'm going to represent corporate interests. If you vote for me, you're a moron. If he'll vote for them because they're morons, he wins. But what Bernie and the left does, which is, to me, more evil, and I'm more open for people to disagree with me on this. How is it not more evil for you to take money from poor and working class people? You are taking advantage of people like me who had no health care, who's struggling. So we decided to do everything we can, even if that means us donating money that we don't have, committing labor that we shouldn't be committing to. And then you guys betray us? You guys betray us. And then people are like, oh my God, Nick always complaining about AOC and Bernie Sanders. Why are you guys always complaining about them? Motherfucker, they committed one of the biggest political heists and con jobs I've ever seen. And my support for Bernie, AOC, and the squad hinged on the idea that I believed them. Like, what I mean by that is that I saw how much working class money they was taking. I saw the Bernie Sanders town hall. Like, I don't know if you guys remember those Bernie rallies. I used to watch all of them. He would have like disabled people. He would have all these people give their testimony, damn near in tears. Like, Bernie, you're our only hope. I'm gonna die without health care. I cannot afford premiums. I can't afford, like, these people will be tears talking to Bernie. And Bernie, don't worry, man. I'm gonna fight for you, bro. Don't worry. I hear your pain. I hear your struggle. I'm gonna fight for you. Please donate to me, guys. And then they turn around and betray those people. I did not think they had that in them. Like, one of the reasons I thought Bernie and AOC in them was legit, because I think, like, who would do that? Who would take advantage of people suffering? Who would take money from working class people in the middle of a recession and then betray them? So I was telling people like, bro, there's no way. There's no way. Like, there's no way they would do that, right? There's no way they would do that. They did. So that's why I'm like, dude, I feel like there should be way more anger, but there's not. But anyway, Eddie, any last things you want to chime in on, and I'll move on to the AMLO topic.
I just wanted to say I am not one of the people who complains about how much you guys cover AOC and Bernie, because like you said, I was in that Bernie sphere.
No, to be clear, most of the people who complain are the people who like AOC and Bernie. Like, oh my God, why are you so obsessed? But go ahead, Eddie.
But it's true. Like, you're not obsessed. You just watched, these people promise us so many things. And we really believed in this Justice Democrat strategy, that they were literally calling it a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party, which is freaking hilarious now that they were ever calling it that. And then you got Kyle Kalinske out here trying to push Marianne Williamson. Like, you guys haven't learned shit. Like it was a con job. And I mean, social democrats, historically, reformists have always sided with the fascists in times of crisis and sided with imperialism and against the Marxists, which is what a lot of people were saying during the Bernie campaign. I didn't necessarily believe them because I thought there was no way that Bernie and AOC and them would do that. But here they are advocating to send your tax money to pay for weapons for Nazis in Ukraine.
Now, I'm going to get to our last topic of the day. I'm going to give you, I know it's a little bit late, so we keep this to an hour. I want to talk about AMLO, someone who has greatly surprised a lot of anti-imperialists. Like AMLO, just like Lula, just like Daniel Ortega, as Marxists, as communists, we shouldn't get our hopes up too high over these people because they're still kind of social democrat reformists, and they get a lot of issues wrong. So when AMLO was first elected, I was like, man, that's good that they got a left leader. But I did not expect much from him, especially considering Mexico is a very important trading partner to the United States. And I mean both ways. Like, Mexico can't afford to piss off the United States, which is why Mexican presidents for a very long time have essentially been United States bootlickers. Not necessarily because they want to be, because they literally had no choice. You're right next to one of the biggest superpowers. It's in your best interest to have a good relationship with them. That's why leftists generally not super excited about Mexican presidents, even AMLO, because we're like, there's the reality is, if you're next to the United States, you're Mexico, you can't be rogue and criticize the empire. Apparently, AMLO said, "Fuck that shit, fuck that. We're gonna go hard. We're gonna go hard regardless." And I'm gonna show you guys some headlines, and this is why the West is tired of AMLO. There's many reasons, and I'm gonna show you guys a few. You have AMLO from Mexico, who wanted to nationalize lithium, which would be a giant blow to American companies. And this is one of the things that AMLO ran on, and one of the things that he started to push as president that really made the U.S. media turn on him. And then I'm going to show you guys this tweet from Ben Norton. Ben Norton explains, foreign corporations are furious over mining reforms of Mexico's leftist AMLO government. So what AMLO is doing is he is fucking up capitalism and capitalists right now. Capitalism has reached its late stage form where it has to expand beyond their borders. That's why Lenin wrote about how imperialism is the highest form of capitalism, because once you run out of workers, laborers to exploit, you gotta look somewhere else, right? And that's so even when it comes to other countries, capitalists expect other countries, especially in the region, to fold to them, because if they don't, it hurts their interests, and they won't allow that to happen. So they will impose authoritarianism, as Eddie, you laid out. Capitalism is authoritarianism. So they will demand their neighbors to shape economic policy that benefits them. How fucked up is that? Don't look out for your own people. You look out for American corporations. This is the mindset of capitalists, and this is what they expect of their allies. You see it in Europe, like where they expect France, UK, and many European countries to be okay with sacrificing the quality of life for the workers, have energy prices go up for their capitalist goals of imperialist domination of NATO. This is what me and this is what Eddie, we chime in on this time, like, because and just like Q also said, like, people think the product of our society is like random, like it comes out of nowhere. No, all this shit is based on materialism, based on the ideology of capitalism. All the failings of our state is not by accident. It's not because of crony capitalism, not because of no. This is what that system leads to. But anyway, let me before I get into another rant. Let me
No, you're good.
Let me read this.
Even AMLO moving left or moving to a more anti-imperialist position is based on material conditions and based on the fact that the Mexican people are tired of being subservient to the U.S. They're tired of not doing what's in their own interest. And I want to add too, because I think it's important and it connects that Luis Arce in Bolivia said they want to create an OPEC of lithium producers. So forever, the U.S. has had large control over this cooperation of oil producing countries called OPEC that allows them to control prices, and it helps enforce the petrodollar. And now that the petrodollar is declining, Arce said countries like Mexico and these countries who are moving to a more socialistic, anti-imperialist position should create an OPEC, but for lithium. So this is absolutely going against the U.S. This is a prime example of the move to multipolarity, both in terms of economic and political relationships with countries moving away from the U.S. And the U.S. is just melting down in response, literally threatening to invade Mexico. Lindsey Graham was saying that the other day. And as they talk about how, Putin invading Ukraine when it's literally a U.S.-backed Nazi puppet government, it's just a totally irrational move. There could be no real reason for Russia to invade, but we've got reason to invade Mexico. Like, it's the most ridiculous shit.
We often, especially during the early days of the Ukraine war, in order to drill it into the heads of the NATO left, because I don't know your take on this, but I really do believe when the Ukraine war first started, there was people who was getting this wrong in good faith. Like there were people that were like, oh, they see one country being invaded by another, so their instinct is they want to help. They don't got all the information yet, but I don't think that comes from malice. It comes from malice when you're someone like Mark Hamill and you're explaining this shit over and over, the Nazi connection, the Maidan coup. Once you know that and you still have your position, that's where I'm like, huh? Well, that's when it becomes shady. But my point is, during the early days, when we try to convince the people I believe who still with good faith, I was telling them, like, if you think Russia invading Ukraine is crazy, imagine if Russia, China, DPRK set up military bases in Mexico, trained an anti-American paramilitary group that was executing Americans in their own country. In that same situation, you don't think the United States will invade Mexico? So that's an extreme situation, right? That I just set up. I set up a situation where it'd be comparable to Ukraine. No, it's worse now. Martin Taylor Greene and Lindsey Graham and Republicans are saying they want to invade Mexico for cartels. Something that is way less significant than what Russia was accusing Ukraine of. Way less. So in hindsight, we didn't even have to use that extreme of an example to make our point of how every single country will respond the way Russia did. And this is why I try to explain to people, whether you agree with the Russian invasion or not, if you study history, if you know anything about states, every state, and if you disagree, feel free to chime in if you have an example when I wouldn't, any state that I've known of would have done the same thing Russia did. Every state, every single state would have invaded this country that was putting anti-Russian or anti-state people in there and executing. Everyone would have did that. Then you had this country break treaties, sign with it. Like every country would have invaded, as shown by United States action. So as someone who lives in the imperial core, our job is to hold our government accountable, and where our taxpayer money is going to NATO. Like we gotta hold these people accountable for setting up the situation that caused the war in Ukraine. We are the ones who put Russia in a position where they had no choice but to invade. I've been asking this question for a year, Eddie. What was Russia's alternative? Some people said that they could hedge. I saw early on people said they should have hedged the Nord Stream pipeline as a way to get the West on board instead of invading Ukraine. Look how that worked out. You see how invest. So I don't know. I'm not from Russia. I'm not here. That's not my job to figure out what they should have done otherwise. We all know every country would have done it. So we need to hold the countries accountable that set the situation up, which is the West and NATO. But anyway, let me continue with the AMLO story. We almost finished here. So you have AMLO who went to step up lithium nationalization, giant blow to Western companies. And then you also have Ben Noor. I finished the tweet. I didn't get you to finish it because I went on a rant. But Ben Norton said corporations are furious over the mining reforms of Mexico's leftist AMLO government. Mexico is the world's largest silver producer and a major producer of other metals. It plans to assert more public control over its materials and boost regulation. So what? And I'm showing just a few examples of AMLO being base as hell. You had AMLO who also led an international campaign against the United States blockade of Cuba. You have AMLO that led an international campaign to boycott the Summit of Americas because Biden's position on Venezuela and refusing to invite, I think it was Venezuela, correct me if I'm wrong, Nicaragua. What's the other country I'm blanking on? There's one more country they didn't invite. But anyway, the point is people got upset over that, and AMLO led the charge to call them out. So I showed you guys the receipts earlier, first, to show you guys why the West considered this guy to be a threat and a problem. And I didn't predict him to be this renegade against the West. So this is the main story why I was building up to. You have President AMLO, who claims he's been spied on by the Pentagon. So let's watch.
Y vamos a cuidar ya la información de la Secretaría de Marina y la Secretaría de la Defensa, porque estamos siendo objeto de espionaje del Pentágono y muchos medios de información en México están filtrando información que les entrega la DEA.
One hell of a charge. So you have the recent Ukraine leaks that exposed the United States as spying on their own allies in Europe, including the Ukrainians. We don't even need leaks for that because this AMLO, like, these motherfuckers spying on me. So they spying on Mexico. The United States have an unhinged international spying program that's targeting dissidents. But this is something the NATO left don't feel important to talk about. They're not going to raise concerns over this. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I see a progressive manufacturer consent towards invading Mexico. They're going to say, we got to get the cartels under control. At this point, guys, I would not be surprised because I have been surprised over and over again. Despite being a critic, I'm a squad critic, Eddie, and I'm still surprised over shit they do. Like, I'm still like, what? You funded who? Any last thoughts on AMLO or any final takes on geopolitics as a whole before we get you out of here?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to see that Mexico is joining these countries moving in this anti-imperialist direction, probably joining that new OPEC of lithium producers and nationalizing their lithium. Yeah, it's funny how every time the DEA goes somewhere and the U.S. is telling us that we need to have the DEA there to fight the cartels, you know, drug trafficking tends to increase or stay really bad. Yeah. And then we find out the DEA is meddling in their elections. I mean, that's been for years in Colombia, which Hugo Chavez called the Israel of Latin America because of the amount of U.S. influence there, largely through the DEA. So it's awesome to see AMLO calling this out. He even stood up for Trump the other day when Trump was indicted. He said, and I think this is a callback to what you said about the free speech warriors on the right not standing up for the socialists being persecuted, whereas AMLO, someone who has actual principles, stood up for Trump and said that it was the Democrats trying to indict him for political purposes. So just shows the difference there between standing on principle and not. I'm sure these folks like Ben Shapiro won't have shit to say about the socialists currently being persecuted. He didn't have anything to say, or these free speech warriors on the right didn't have anything to say when we had 7 of our TikTok accounts banned for telling the truth about Ukraine. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, nowhere to be found. I remember that. No right wingers was like, oh my God, Midwestern Marx. Nowhere to be found. But this is the headline you just referenced. I'm glad you did because it's an important point. You had AMLO who called out Trump charges being political, which they are. Anyone who denies that is the biggest bootlicking Democrat person that is out there. So
if you guys don't think it's political, there's literally one. You can use many examples that can completely destroy this argument. George W. Bush is a fucking criminal, and Barack Obama and the Democrats said we should move on, that we shouldn't prosecute him because that would be damaging to our country. The reason why they had that position because George W. Bush was effectively retired. Not only was he retired, he was anti-Trump. So they chose not to prosecute his crimes because he's politically on their side. And he also politically not a threat. If George W. Bush was running for Senate, if you were challenged, like imagine it was a contested, the Senate is split 50-50. And George W. Bush ran for Senate in Texas against Beto O'Rourke for that one Senate seat that they need to control Senate. You think Democrats all of a sudden would be talking about prosecuting George W. Bush in that situation? Of course they would. They don't now because he's not a political threat. He retired making paintings. His war crimes keeping him up at night. He's a retired old man. That's why they don't prosecute him. They prosecute Trump because he's planning on running again. That is the definition of political. And now AMLO's position and what he says is, he says, imagine if Mexico or any country in the global south was caught charging their current number one political enemy. That is literally what they accuse Nicolas Maduro of doing. That is what they accuse Cuba of doing. They always accuse United States enemies of prosecuting their political opponents. Do you guys know that one of the things that liberals, Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, and right-wingers used to justify Venezuelan sanctions, they would say stuff like Nicolas Maduro is imprisoning his political opponents. Nicolas Maduro executed his political opponents. And then you look into that story, the people that he sent to prison are people who literally tried to assassinate him.
They stole a government helicopter and fired grenades at the presidential office. I remember looking up that story and being like, what? This is not political persecution. This is them putting a terrorist in jail.
Exactly, Eddie. So Nicolas Maduro did what literally any country in the history of humanity did after an attempted assassination of the leader. They put them in prison. And then all the Western media outlets, including liberal ones, were like, oh my God, political persecution of political parties. So let me get this straight. A political party can plan an assassination of a leader, and that's political persecution, but you guys get Trump on a misdemeanor campaign finance law, but you try to convince us this is not political. Get the fuck out of here. No one who's not brainwashed by the red-blue game, like AMLO and many others, will stand for that. Anyway, I think I ran enough on that. Eddie, any last thoughts? Where can I find you? Make sure you guys follow Midwestern Marx. You guys was banging on TikTok, but you was banned a few times, so I don't know where you're at right now. Hopefully you can get your account restored, but here's the Twitter. I'm gonna pull this up so that people can find you. But any last shout outs, Eddie?
We're Midwestern Marx everywhere on YouTube, and we stream on Twitch and YouTube like almost every day, and then we're on Twitter. And Edward M. Liger is one of our TikTok account that's not banned. It has we're back up to 23,000 followers on there.
Nice,
so
nice.
They can't stop us. We'll keep making accounts. You can check out our website. We publish a lot of books. If you go to the store section of our website, we have this is our newest one that we're really excited about, talking about that concept of the purity fetish. We have the Journal of American Socialist Studies, where I've been studying healthcare administration in grad school. So I did a full Marxist analysis of the American healthcare system and everything wrong with that. And you also get access to those if you support us on Patreon. So yeah, that's all my shameless self plugs.
Yeah, make sure you gotta check out Eddie. It's a crime that we waited this long to do this, but we gotta definitely make it more frequent. Great conversation on Poppy Out, Eddie. Thank you for coming on. This Saturday, I think we gotta have a great show. I'm gonna have Harry Berger on. Wrong person. I have Derek Monroe. He wrote. Let me pull this up. He was one of the people who was calling out the Maidan coup in Ukraine. He wrote this story. We're gonna have him on Saturday, and also my interview on System Update with Glenn Greenwald. I'm gonna air that maybe tomorrow around noon. So make sure you guys subscribe, like, because we got a lot of great content. Like the person, Derek Monroe, he wrote about the Maidan coup. Look at the date here. This was written March 2014. So this is a guy who's been warning you guys about Western attempts to create a proxy war in Ukraine. So we're gonna have him on Saturday. We got a lot of great content coming up. If you guys want to support the show, we definitely gonna need a lot of support coming up soon with our chapters opening. Sabby did great on the ground coverage of RFK. She has a channel big enough to do that kind of stuff, but we gotta RBN. We need to continue to grow if we want to be able to expand, get on the ground. Like I want to go to St. Louis, interview the Black Socialist movement. Like RBN is just getting started, so if you guys want to help us grow, like we have a few ways you can do that. We have Patreon in the description. Even $3 a month to help. We also have a GoFundMe. That's a way that you guys can see all the money that people donate. And also, when you look at our GoFundMe, you realize it's not enough. Like people assume we make way more than we do. We barely making it by. So GoFundMe, you can see like how little we actually make. And it's just a way you guys can see exactly where everything. Now you can see them out on Patreon too. You guys see like we're not making that much money doing this, so which is okay. I don't need to make a lot of money. I just want to be able to physically be able to do this and pay the people who help our channel out, like our thumbnail and our social media managers. I want to be able to pay their fair labor value because that is what we strive for as Marxists. So that's why I plug these things. We got all that in the description. If you guys want to help us pay fair labor value, make sure everyone can continue this work. You can support us in the description. Had to GoFundMe, the Patreon. I also have Venmo and Cashapp direct donation links if you don't want to get sign up to a monthly plan. So once again, much appreciation to you guys. Much love to all you guys. We're gonna be back tomorrow. I think the JB and Sabby show is tomorrow. JB lost his grandma today, which is extremely sad. So I need each and every one of you to reach out to JB. And I lost my grandma last year, so it's unimaginable pain. Like you know what I mean? It's unimaginable pain. So please show some love. Please send a great message to JB and help him in this unbelievably hard time that he's going through. So I don't know. I will about to say JB and Sabby show tomorrow, but I think it's best if he's canceled. I'm not gonna say he's gonna cancel, but I wouldn't be mad, obviously. And he need to take care of himself and his family. So everyone, please give reach out to him on Twitter, comment on his JB videos, like do something. Like he needs help right now. So much love to all of you guys. Thank you guys for watching. I love the RBN community. I really do. Have a good one, guys.